Good afternoon. My name is Remy Ogundairo, and I'll be presenting and introducing Professor Shope William Elegbe. And I'll just take a few minutes to read our profile so that we have an idea of the background of our next speaker. So Professor Shope Williams Elegbe is a professor and head of Department of Mercantile Law and the Deputy Director of the African Procurement Law Unit, Stellenbosch University. She specializes in public procurement law, anti-corruption law, sustainable development law, and commercial law. She is the author of over 50 publications in the areas of anti-corruption and public procurement law. She's also an editor for several top law journals. She's currently a member of Transparency International's working group on debarment and exclusion. Shope studied law at the University of Lagos, Nigeria, and subsequently undertook an LLM at the London School of Economics, where she graduated with a distinction. She also completed a PhD in public procurement and anti-corruption law at the University of Nottingham, UK. Shope has taught at the Universities of Stirling and Nottingham, both in the UK and the University of Lagos in Nigeria. So Professor Shope Williams Elegbe, it's an honor to have you in our midst this afternoon. We have 15 minutes for your presentation, if possible, and 5 minutes for the question and answers. Please, you have the floor now, and you can share your content. Professor Shope, please.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you to your pastor and to everybody on the community. Okay, so I've been asked to talk about developing career and educational resilience, and I'll just give a bit of a background. Obviously you've heard that I'm a law professor, but my knowledge of this comes from the fact that as a law professor and as a senior member of staff in Stellenbosch University, where I'm based in South Africa, I've had to mentor younger colleagues. And it actually led me on a journey to understand what how these colleagues can thrive and to try and deal with a lot of challenges that they were facing in the work environment. So when we talk about resilience, we're talking about the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. You can call it elasticity or toughness, or what I like to say, bounce back ability. So it's basically being able to cope and thrive in the midst of challenges, being strong on the inside, if you like. Now, there are a number of things that affect resilience. So of course, you have the fact that if you have a strong support system, if you have a deep spirituality, when I say spirituality, I mean a belief that you are connected to and assisted by God. So we have many people that might be Christian, but they don't really believe that God is in their corner. And you see that plays out, because when you believe that God is actually for you, you tend to believe when things happen that might be unpleasant or unforeseen. When you believe that you're backed by God, you will realize that things are happening for you, that they're not happening to you, because you will anchor your life in the scripture that says that all things will work out for my good. So things will happen that may not be good, but God promises us that they will work out for our good. So the things that affect resilience, as I said, your support system, a deep spirituality, having a sense of purpose, which will inform your vision and let you know that even though you're facing challenges, those challenges are bumps in the road, but they're not the road itself. The other two things that affect your resilience would be your emotions and what I call your limiting beliefs. So I'm going to focus on three of them. I'm going to focus on your emotions, your limiting beliefs, and your sense of spirituality. Now, our emotions determine our resilience because our emotions determine the responses that we have to our experiences. So you see two people that might have the same experience, but they come out of it differently because of the way that they have been able to internalize that particular experience. Now, one of the important things that I've I've found out from having to take people through their academic journeys, mentor younger colleagues, was the fact that many of us have not been trained, or we haven't learned how to manage our emotions and our emotional responses. And we haven't learned to do this because we haven't been told that we can control our thoughts. There's a professor, or maybe a retired professor from one of the universities in the USA, who used to do research on stem cells. And he actually found that 95% of what happens in our life, 95% of our behavior is a direct result of our mindset, of the way we think, of the beliefs we have, of the way we respond to situations. And according to his research, he found that a lot of our mindset is actually programmed in us at a very young age, which is between the ages of 0 to 7. But his research found that actually you can change this mindset, you can change the way you think, you can change your thoughts, even as an adult, but there are certain things that you have to do. So I was saying that it's important that for you to manage your emotions, you have to manage your thought life. And for you to do this, you have to first believe that you are in control of your thoughts. I have a mentor who says that there are no victims, there are only volunteers. So if, for instance, you are overseeing your colleagues as an HR professional, or even yourself, if you've had your own setbacks, if you are plagued by negative thoughts, then it's because you haven't believed, or you haven't taken responsibility for actually dealing with those negative thought patterns. So there's so many recipes that you can use to change the thoughts that you have. First, you have to be aware of them, and you have to replace those thoughts with another thought. For me, the best thoughts that I can use to replace negative thoughts come from the Bible. So if I find that I'm in a negative spiral of thinking, and I recognize it, and I say, okay, well, actually, I'm not having that thought today. This is what God says about me. So I might be going through the situation, but the thoughts that I'm having in my mind, which may come from beliefs I picked up as a child, are not the truth. And I replace that thought with the truth. Other things that can be done are things like getting out negative emotions through journaling, through gratitude practices, through a forgiveness practice as well. Now, a good emotional state is key to a good quality of life. If you take control over your emotions, you find out that even in the midst of challenges, you end up having good days. And if you have good days eventually become good weeks become good years, and good years are a good life. So even though there are obstacles, there are challenges, there are difficulties, we're going through a season right now, those don't necessarily have to define you, because you take control and you take responsibility for what is actually going on in your life. So I think that one of the things that I have learned, and I teach my mentees, is that they have to define the kind of emotional states that they want to be in. For myself, I selected 3 emotional states that I want. They're peace, joy, and abundance. And every day I do something to create peace, joy, and abundance in my life. It doesn't matter what circumstances are going on in my life. Every day I do something that will create peace, joy, and abundance. So I find the things that lead me to a peaceful state. I find the things that cause joy in my life. I find the things that put me in an aura of abundance, if you like. And I do those things. I meditate them, I say them, and I practice them. The other thing that I've found to so the other thing that I found to work, and that I've used with my mentees, is making sure that people let go of any kind of relationship or situation that they find to be toxic, or that doesn't serve them. So sometimes you find that you might have friends, even family members, where when you engage with them, you find yourself going to a low emotional state, you become sad, you become depressed. Then it means that those types of situations or those types of relationships are not beneficial for you, and you have to take more control over how you engage with those types of people. The other thing that I advise my mentees is that when something bad happens, as I said, we know we're going through a difficult situation. People are losing jobs, people are losing family members to the disease and everything like that. But when something happens that is negative, sometimes we have a tendency to ask the wrong questions. So we do things like, why is this happening to me? What have I done wrong? It is this person's fault. If X had not happened, Y would not have happened. But those questions are not empowering questions. And those questions actually put you in a negative emotional state. So you ask the right questions. Instead of saying, why me? Then you can say, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I be better from this? How can I move forward from what is happening? And those are questions that God can answer. Those are questions that people can, that you can get support with, but not asking why me? Why did X do this to me? Why did Y do? Those are victim questions, and those questions don't serve you. In the midst of a situation like this, where there's a lot of information flying on social media, I always advise people, the same way you practice, that we practice physical hygiene. Everybody takes a shower every day, but many people don't practice mental hygiene. So we take in a lot of information. If anything is flying on WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram, the negative numbers, whatever, you are consuming that information, and it's having an impact on you. It's having an impact on your emotions, and it's having an impact on your responses. It's having an impact on the stories that you begin to tell yourself about life, that you tell yourself about the world. If you are engaging in negative media, and that negative media tells you that things are bad in the world, things are terrible in the world, there's no abundance in the world, people are losing jobs, nothing is good is going to happen, then you will begin to act out those stories. Those become the stories that you tell yourself. So when something happens, you immediately align it that, okay, this is happening because the world is in a terrible place, the world is in a recession. But as Christians, we are not controlled by the world economy. I mean, you guys have a fantastic pastor. I've listened to Pastor Poju, and you know what he says. He tells us that we don't say the things that we don't want to see. But that's something that we do all the time. We tell ourselves these negative stories, and those stories actually become self-fulfilling prophecies. They are stories that are not aligned with the word of God. So the other thing, so I said I wanted to talk about emotions, and I also wanted to talk about spirituality, but I won't dwell too much on that because everyone here, I believe, is Christian. But I think it's really important that even as Christians, you do a check. And when people are facing a challenge, or you're facing a challenge yourself, check whether what it is that you really believe. Do I really believe that God is for me? Do I really believe that God is benevolent? Do I really believe that all things are working together for my good? Do I really believe that I have an abundance of every good work? Because many times we say these things with our mouths, but we don't believe them in our hearts. And the Bible has told us that it is as you think that you will be. Whatever you believe will be done unto you. The Bible tells us that that God will do exceedingly above our what we think or imagine. But what are we thinking? What are we imagining? Sometimes it is those negative mindsets that we have internalized, that we've taken as the foundation for our lives, that are playing out in our lives. So God is doing what it is that we imagine, but those imaginations we have are not good. The things we think and believe about ourselves, they're coming to pass, but they're not good. So some of these laws, these are spiritual laws, they're spiritual principles. They work whether you want them to work or not. If you believe that disaster is your portion, and then you see disasters, then you complain, but you have been thinking about this, you've been meditating on this for so long, you've been speaking on this for so long. So these are cycles that we have to break. We have to we have to get to the point where we truly believe that we're deeply loved by God, and that he's aware of everything that is going on, and that he will do everything that he has promised. We cannot take those ideas that we've had from childhood, that we don't qualify. Some of us growing up, maybe our parents told us that we were not worthy, that we don't deserve this or that because we didn't act in a certain way. You didn't get the right grade, so you're not getting a toy for Christmas. And we take that and make that, if we make meaning of that as children, and now say, okay, I'm not, I don't deserve certain things. I don't meet the conditions even for God. So we have to be able to excavate those negative ideas that we have about ourselves, that we picked up from childhood and that we have transferred onto God. We have to be able to dig up those ideas and actually replace them with what the truth is. Because our expectations will be met, whether those expectations are good or bad. So we really need to figure out what it is that we believe. The other thing about being resilient, whether it's in your career or whatever, is that we have to address our limiting beliefs. and this is very what I've already been saying, well, things that we have picked up in childhood, and limiting beliefs are ideas that we think of, things we think we can or cannot do. I have a mentor who says that if you fight for your limiting beliefs, you get to keep them. So if you feel you're not qualified enough, you feel you're not good enough, you feel that you're not going to, do well in this area, or this challenge is not going to be resolved, if you fight for that belief, you will get to keep it. It was Henry Ford that said, whether you believe you can or you can't, either way, you are right. So, some of us also, we look at the situation and say, no, I'm just being realistic. The economy is bad, I'm being realistic. But realism, or this idea of being realistic, is just a socially accepted form of pessimism. Our God is the most unrealistic person in the universe. Everything he does, from creating the universe out of nothing, from sending his son to die, totally unrealistic actions. So where do we get this idea that when we deal with him, we have to be realistic? That comes from a mindset that things are limited, that there's a scarcity, that the abundance that the Bible speaks of does not apply to us. So I think these are some of the things that we have to deal with. A number of resilience strategies, making sure you have the right community around you. So not the community that when you go and lament, they lament with you, but a community of power, a community that can actually help you move forward. Also not suppressing your feelings. Too often in the African context, if something is wrong, people say, no, don't cry, it is well, it is well. So they use spiritual language to try to bypass the natural process of grief. If you've lost a job, or you've lost a loved one, you've lost your income, then yeah, it's an unpleasant situation. Something has happened and you have to grieve the loss of that income. You have to grieve the loss of that expectation. You have to give vent to your feelings, and then, find a way to move forward. But don't let people make you feel like you're not allowed to express your emotions. And also resilient strategies. Make sure that you have the right community. Don't isolate yourself. Speak to the right people. So speak about your challenges, but speak to the right people, not the people that will have a pity party or a drama party with you. Accept what has happened as a reality, but don't be defined by it. So if you've lost your job, you don't in your head make out that now this is you. That's not you. It's just a circumstance that has happened to you. Put your difficulties into a proper perspective. It is just an event in your life. It is not your life. Your life is not over, and nothing lasts forever. So whether it's good or bad, no situation or circumstance lasts forever. The other thing that I advise my mentees to do when you're going through a situation, make sure you're not carrying any resentment or blame. Yeah, okay. So I'm on the last point. Make sure you're not carrying any resentment or bitterness or blame. Forgive whoever you need to forgive. And the last thing is always to trust God, because he's faithful and he doesn't lie. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Shope, for that. I'll call them life hacks for handling resilience, where emotions, in the areas of emotions, limiting beliefs, and spirituality. So I think we should be able to take one question, but if at the moment, Professor Shope, I hope you are still online. So I'll just read. Okay, so I'll just read a comment, and it says it's quite tough to separate yourself from a toxic person at work when the person is your boss and the one who appraises you. What practical steps can a person take if in this situation?
Okay, so that's a very good question. And there's a thing that a system that I have. I didn't devise it, but I learned about it. So when you have people that are toxic, when you have people who are showing up in, and they bring negative emotions, negative energy with them, you have to realize that those people, they're coming from a place of their own brokenness. Do you understand? So you have to be able to have the presence of mind and the empathy to look at this person and say, this person is nasty all the time. This person is nasty all the time, is toxic, but this person is acting out because somewhere they've picked that that's the way to behave. And you begin to look at that person as the person stuck in their childhood trauma or stuck in their childhood mindset. And that gives you empathy. So when you approach the person, you don't have those feelings of resentment or, this person is coming again, I have to deal with this person. You now look at it, if I was dealing with a 7-year-old boy who was acting out, how would I behave? I will be kind. I wouldn't be crazy myself when a child is acting crazy. And so you look at that person in that light, and now realize, you know what, I don't have to meet their toxicity with my own toxicity because this person is broken. I am not broken. So I am the one in this relationship who is going to be the adult, as it were, and make sure that I don't allow whatever they do to come into me, to influence me, because I can empathize with that person because they're still acting as the broken child that they were, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Okay, thank you so much for that response, Professor Shope. And I believe a lot of us will be able to relate with the question and the response that you have given, because in the workplace, we have different people from different backgrounds, and we all come with, maybe baggage. So thank you very much. We will not be able to take any more questions in this session. We will add them to the list of questions and then send to the presenters, and responses will be provided to all attendees at the end of the day. So thank you very much for that. And